Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Bradford series. Bradford is a hugely important city in West Yorkshire. A lot of it is unparished, but there are 20 of them here, so let's dive into one of them today. You know, sat-navs are brilliant pieces of kit. They really are. They can take you to pretty much any destination you program them to. However, they do have one major flaw, and that is sometimes they take you down roads that are a bit bumpy. Just like my sat-nav has done to get me to this point here. See this road? Well, this looks pretty tame compared to the one I've just driven up. There's a right turn down there and then it comes over this bridge, and that road that leads down there is very, very bumpy. It's not ideal. I don't know why it didn't bring me this way. This is obviously a road, this. I wouldn't have minded coming in this direction, but of course I don't know this place, but I soon will. Welcome back to Bradford. Today we're in a place called Cullingworth. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Cullingworth, which dates back to at least the 11th century. Here we are 7 miles west of Bradford and 3 miles south of Keighley, surrounded by areas of moorland to the north and the west. It was mentioned in the Domesday book as Cullingauuorde, indicating a settlement of Anglo Saxon origin was already in existence here at that time. Between the 12th and the 18th centuries, Cullingworth developed around the crossing points of Ellar Carr beck and the road between Keighley and Halifax. Agriculture was for centuries the main industry, but this is Bradford, so guess what happened? Yes, this is another village which had spinning mills. There were a few out here, maybe not as many as in Oxenhope, but by the late 18th century it was a major employer. With industrialisation came the railways, and Cullingworth had a station, which now no longer stands. Throughout the 20th century, Cullingworth continued to grow, eventually expanding southwards. The original core of the settlement is the north of the village these days, and it's seamlessly connected to Cullingworth Gate, which was formerly a separate settlement. Cullingworth is located in the eastern foothills of the Pennines. Although not on a river, it stands upon Manywells Beck, which flows through the village before discharging into Harden Beck. Big village this, but not a lot out there about it, oddly. Let's go for a wander, folks. We begin this lengthy route on Station Road, and our first landmark is the Cullingworth Conservative Club, which was formed in 1891. Station Road is so named because even though you won't find a railway station on it these days, there used to be one. The site of it is our finishing point later. Where it meets George Square, we find a church. This is dedicated to St John the Evangelist. It's a striking building constructed in an early English style. It has an unusually positioned tower, constructed of solid stone masonry, featuring unusual swept eaves. In 1988, a parish room was built into the back of its nave. The church is set within a modest graveyard, in which there are a few monuments. Its lit gate was built in 1923 as a First World War memorial. To the north of the churchyard, the land drops away steeply down to Ellar Carr Mill and affords impressive views across the valley below. I think there's some kind of event going on in there at the moment. I can hear some music inside the church, so we won't be able to go in. So out the front of the church you've got another pub. You've got the George right here, the George Hotel, and that stands next to this little cobbled square. We are heading in that kind of direction, heading for the main road through Cullingworth next. Now we go down Halifax Road, passing the back of the George Hotel on the way. It's part of the Renovair Hotel Group, having been rescued from closure in 2011. Close by we have an old Wesleyan Methodist chapel. According to its date stone, it was built in 1824, although some sources say 1825. Let's move on to the War Memorial. This is perhaps one of the biggest we've ever seen, and it commemorates more than just the local fallen, and there are 56 of those, by the way. It also commemorates RAF Manywells Height, a World War I airfield with a grass landing strip. It was located just to the south of the village. There's some more on that later. We're now coming into the village centre. There are many shops and businesses here, a lot of which are independent traders, like this butcher's for example. There's also another antique centre, similar to the one we caught in Willesden. It occupies a former mill, and that archway is the entrance to its car park. Okay, we've left the main street behind temporarily. We're now on Mill Street, and we've got a few things down here. We've got a medical centre, which is this building right here. Looks a bit newer compared to some of the things we've seen so far. So let's carry on up here. There's a few more things of note, and eventually we'll sort of work our way back to the main street. On Mill Street we have the village hall, which contains a nursery most mornings during school term time. The hall can be rented out too, and you can do so by visiting its website. At the end of Mill Street we can see the village's Victorian school, which has now been converted into apartments. We'll see the current school shortly. Back out onto Halifax Road, directly opposite Mill Street is Cullingworth's co-op store, and behind it you can see the mill again. It's around 150 years old and was a former worsted mill located right in the heart of the village. Because of its size, it affords antiques retailers some 8,000 square feet of shop space. Over the road is another former chapel, this time a Baptist chapel, which has been turned into a private dwelling. It's one of Cullingworth's Grade 2 listed buildings. And a village this size couldn't cope without a chip shop now, could it? Here's Cullingworth Fisheries, which is almost next door. Okay, we've reached the post office, and outside it we've got a pillar box. Wait away for the postman. George the 5th pillar box, that one, guys. Right, let's keep walking. We're heading for the recreation area now, which is off to the right. Here we have Cullingworth's Recreation Ground, a large open space right in the centre of the village. It features a playground, a hard-surfaced games area and a football pitch. Cullingworth also has a local cricket club that plays in the Halifax Cricket League. They don't play on this recreation ground, however. Their ground is close to the church. Other sports teams in Cullingworth include Cullingworth Youth Football Club, a local Sunday League football team who compete in the Wharfdale Triangle. Other than that, I don't really have a lot more to say about this area. It's a quiet spot in the middle of what is otherwise a thriving, busy village. Along the southern edge of the playing field there's a footpath which, if followed, will take you to Cullingworth Village Primary School, which is in your shop now. According to Ofsted, this is a highly rated school. It's a newish school, having been built in 2004. If you look closely though, you might spot something much older here. And this school has a piece of Cullingworth history within its grounds. If you look here, you can see a big sign that says the word Cullingworth. That came from Cullingworth Station. It's the name board which was once at the railway station, and it's been preserved here in the school's grounds. And the reason I know it's come from there is because of this board. You can see it here. There you go. There's the Cullingworth name board, and that is the former Cullingworth station, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will do later on in this video. As far as the railway goes though, we are quite close to the route of the railway line. If you go across the road, across this little roundabout, you can get onto the Great Northern Railway Trail. You might remember this from the Willesden episode. We're about to walk over a viaduct. Cullingworth Viaduct often gets overlooked by many people owing to the fact that just a bit further up the line is the much more famous Hughenden Viaduct. It's nowhere near the height of its close neighbour, nor is it as long, but I reckon it's still an impressive feat of architecture. It has 9 arches, each of which span 40 feet. It crosses 2 public roads, one which runs from Keighley to Bradford, the other from Bingley to Halifax. The archway over the former is built in a slightly skewed fashion. It might not be the same view as from Hughenden, but it still provides a great panoramic view of Cullingworth. Let's continue down the former line for a short way. In doing so, I passed this cute little garden, which had some pretty little ornaments. I thought this was worth including. Of course, if you were to carry on a lot further, you would come to Hughenden Viaduct. It's all the same former line. We're not going that far though, we're getting off at this bridge right here. So I followed the railway line for quite a long way, and I've just come up the side of that bridge that you've just seen, over it and onto this bridleway, which is very bumpy by the way. We're now in the south of Cullingworth and most of this is residential, so I'm starting to work my way back north. I'm heading for Parkside School. That's our next major landmark. It's quite a distance away from here though. This next section is mainly residential. The village has undergone a lot of expansion in recent decades, meaning there are areas like this all over it. Cullingworth has become a popular commuter settlement thanks to the readily available housing here. Many people living here work in Keighley, Bradford or Halifax. We're heading downhill now. This building is the back gate lodge to a grand house called the Nook, which was built in 1735. The front lodge is on Halifax Road. At the foot of the hill is a small green, and to the right is Parkside Terrace. That's where we're going because Parkside School is along there. Parkside is a co-educational secondary school which includes a sixth form, and it's a fairly new school too, having been formed in the year 2000. This followed a wide-scale reorganisation of education in Bradford. It's administered by the Parkside Creative Learning Trust and Bradford City Council. Okay, now we're starting to head south again. It's a complicated route, this one, and basically what we're doing is we're following the course of the Manywells beck, which you might be able to hear in the background. I can do one better than that. I can show you it. Just got to be careful here because this is quite a steep cliff. I don't want to fall down it. There you go, there's the Manywells beck. It flows in a northerly direction. Wouldn't like to fall down there. There's no handrail or fence or anything here, so you can look at it and admire it, but just be careful. So we're basically following this on the road, of course. So we're starting to head this way, back south. We are following the beck, but we won't actually see it. You'll have to imagine it's behind the buildings in these next few shots. We're around the back of Parkside Terrace here. I came down here to catch the current Methodist chapel, which isn't this. I realised afterwards it's actually on the other side of this building. Epic fail. Hallows Park Road next. This was built over the driveway that led to the Nook. It's a deceivingly steep street this. It looks flat, but it's actually a pretty hard climb. At the top of the road there's a garage. This is Manywells Garage, which will sort you out for an MOT if you're needing one, and they sell used cars too. A few steps to the west and you're at the Fleece Inn. According to my sources, this is a popular place for hikers. That makes a bit of sense, because you can see this pub from Cullingworth Viaduct. I imagine if you just walked the Great Northern Railway Trail, you'd need a place to relax at the end of it. So we're going to head underneath the viaduct in a moment. Just going to briefly go up this road here to see if there's anything up there. I don't think there is. Very difficult to cross the road here, by the way. Very busy roundabout. That's it, we're safely across. We'll just see if there's anything down here, and then we'll turn around and go under the viaduct. There wasn't a great deal up this end of Halifax Road, barring this bus stop really. Here you can catch two services, the number 607 and the 502, both of which go to Keighley, but Bradford is also reachable as well from Cullingworth. Next to the bus stop there's a bridge where the Manywells beck passes underneath the road. Let's go up Haworth Road now, which means going under Cullingworth Viaduct. You don't realise until you're under it just how big this actually is. I don't know if you'd noticed at the beginning, but the viaduct is featured on Cullingworth's village sign. It's easily the village's biggest landmark. On the left, just after it, is a marine hoist building company called Wise Handling. They designed their first one in 1972, the year the company was founded. And just after that, if you look to your right, you'll see a random cottage. I mean it, look, this is Random Cottage. What a great name for a property. And if you take a right turn off this road onto Turf Lane, this will take you to the site of Cullingworth Station. There's a sign here that says unsuitable for HGVs. To be fair, it's barely suitable for cars because I had to drive down here earlier thanks to the sat-nav. So if we take a walk down here, this will take us back to the start and to the site of Cullingworth Station. Turf Lane, and this large house on the right is Turf House. We're now walking parallel to the former railway line. Part of it is currently undergoing some new development. Avant Homes Yorkshire has bought this 4.8 acre site, which will feature some 53 new build homes when it's completed. It's expected to cost around £13.6 million. If you go a little further up the road, you'll eventually see this old railway bridge on your right. We're now close to the site of the former Cullingworth station. The station was operational between 1884 and 1955. It was demolished in 1964. The name board we saw back at the school was left abandoned in thick vegetation until it was rediscovered in the 1970s. It was placed at the school in 2013. The site of the station yard is now this business, HCF Poultry, which is a slaughterhouse. And that's pretty much the route. This was a really hard one to find information for. I don't think I did too badly though, with what little is out there. Here's a bit more about RAF Manywells Height. It was used by aircraft from 1913 and commissioned as an airfield by the Royal Flying Corps in 1916. The RAF closed the site in 1919. The airfield and its environs totalled 40 acres, but facilities were basic and ran to just one wooden and canvas hangar with an accompanying grass strip. It was designed for night operations when combating German airships, and it was a relief landing ground for two squadrons, these being number 33 and 76. Aircraft from these squadrons would have visited occasionally by day to check suitability for operations, but there's no evidence that it was ever used in its intended capacity. The site has now returned to grass and farmland. Its northern edge is now used as part of a landfill site known as Manywells Tip. It was considered as a civilian airfield for West Yorkshire on decommissioning, but Yeadon in Leeds was chosen instead, and that eventually became Leeds Bradford Airport. Okay, and that completes our tour of Cullingworth. A long route, a very complicated route, you know, north and south, but it's the only way to do it because of the sort of the lie of the land and where the footpaths and the roads are. It's just the easiest thing to do. So yeah, I do hope you've enjoyed this one. This one's been a tough one. It's taken me almost 2 hours to walk around, but you know, that's Bradford for you. There's loads of big ones out here. Still got to go to the biggest one yet, and that's Keighley. Okay, this has been the parish of Cullingworth, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.